Hey everyone, welcome to our 53rd video session here at Impaction. We're really lucky and we're really happy to have Justin join our call today. But before we get started, let's talk a little bit about what we do at Impaction and the purpose of these video sessions in the first place. So essentially, Impaction's mission is to lower the barrier to entry for people looking to make a positive difference in their local communities. So essentially, we're trying to change the narrative around what it means to make a social impact. We have a social impact job portal and various community projects that we launch as a result of our efforts. And our membership has grown to over 1,200 people across 50 countries around the world. So we have an international community base, and we're really excited to have people from all over join us for today's call as well. So these video sessions are community-driven efforts where we have mini hackathons or presentations from social entrepreneurs around the world. So that's why Justin is here today to share with us a little bit about more of like the revolution behind mushrooms themselves. But before we get started with the presentation and the topic for today, let's introduce everyone who's on the call right now, and Justin and I will introduce you. So I'll start with myself. I'm Shivani Choksi, and I'm the CEO and founder of Impaction. Dan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Daniel Heiniger. I'm here in Chicago, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at Impaction.
Thanks, Dan. Juan, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Juan Ramos. I'm based in Guatemala, and I'm the Business Development Associate here at Impaction.
Good to see you. All right, Jim, do you want to go?
Yes, I'm Jim Smurawa, Justin's dad. Curious and fascinated by mushrooms and all the health benefits that it has to offer.
Good to see you, Jim. Barbara, you want to go?
I'm Barbara Smurawa. I'm Justin's mother, and I'm also here just to support and out of keen interest about what's happening.
Thanks for joining. Awesome. Adonis, I think you just joined. Welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself and share where you're from?
Morning, everybody. My name is Adonis. I'm coming from Chicago, and what brought me here is just interested in mushroom. I did some mushroom planting last year. They didn't come out well, so interested in learning about mushrooms.
Thanks for joining. And Sunit, do you want to go?
Hello, everyone. I'm Sunit from India. I'm basically just interested in mushroom. I've been started doing mushroom cultivation for the past 1 year. I'm here to learn more from experts like you all.
Awesome, Sunit. It's good seeing you. All right, everyone. I'm going to introduce Justin, and Justin, you can just go right into your presentation. So today we're learning about the positive impact of mushrooms on our bodies and food systems from Justin. He's the founder of Full Circle Fungi, a Chicago-based aspiring cooperative growing mushrooms for fresh food, medicine, compost, and sustainable food autonomy. They envision a local food system where resources, knowledge, and food flow freely among our shared connections, building health in our bodies and Chicago's soils. Not only are mushrooms delicious and nutritious, they also have a lot to teach us about cooperation and transformation. So Justin, do you want to share anything in additional to your work at Full Circle Fungi, and then go ahead with your presentation?
Cool. Yeah, thank you. So thanks for having me this morning. Thank you everyone for jumping on this call. Yeah, that pretty much sums up what we do at Full Circle Fungi. We're looking to, integrate with the community, connect different communities. I'll open up with a little quote about mycelium. Like a wild river system, mycelium flows as an open circulatory network of shared waters, nutrients, and information. And I wanted to share that just because I feel like that kind of embodies the general, the values that we live by and want to operate by at Full Circle Fungi. connecting communities, connecting resources and information. So with that, I will jump into this presentation. So thanks again, everyone, for hopping on this call. Yeah, I wanted to share some information about food as medicine, how fungi can bring healing full circle. So to begin with, I wanted to start with a land acknowledgement. I want to begin by acknowledging the land we are on. This land we call Chicago is the traditional home of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. It is also the homeland of Miami, Peoria, Fox, and many other more tribes who inhabited this land and still do. Indigenous people are still here and should be acknowledged as the original caretakers of the land. Environmental rights are Indigenous rights. I want to acknowledge our relationship to the land, not just Turtle Island, but all land, our connection to it, and our responsibility to protect it. So, a little background on mushrooms as we begin. All right. So fungi are everywhere. Over 140,000 estimated species, of which only 10% are believed to be discovered. Of those, 50% are considered edible, and about 2,000 are known to be safe for consumption. And at least 700 species known to possess significant medicinal and pharmacological properties based on their constituents. So that's giving us a little picture into what fungi and mushrooms have to potentially offer if we give them the time. So real quick, what is fungi? What are fungi? This little picture depicts the life cycle of mushrooms, beginning from spore germination, moves into mycelium. The mycelium is this thread-like structure you see on the right-hand side of the screen. That's essentially like a one cell wall thick biomass that is moving through its substrate, which is more often than not soil, but also wood. As it moves through, it's analyzing its surroundings, sending information back to the mycelial body mass, and releasing metabolites that help to kind of break down its surroundings and feed the mycelial structure. So as the mycelium moves through the substrate, it eventually will receive a trigger mechanism, which usually is like oxygen or high moisture in the form of humidity. And at that point, it's going to send out its fruiting body or mushroom, which is essentially a reproductive organ and allows for the spores to then be released and the cycle to begin again. So a little background and cultural relevance. Mushrooms have been acknowledged for thousands of years in various cultures and populations, going as far back as 200 AD in China. I believe as of 2017, China was producing upwards of 37 million tons of fungi a year. And that's just to, that's essentially just facilitating the Asian market in their consumption. So that just gives you a little idea of how popular fungi are and can be. Now, over here in the United States and other countries, we're not quite as mycophilic, we're more mycophobic, meaning that we haven't really taken the time to appreciate mushrooms. And obviously that's a generalization. I don't mean to speak for all populations, but here in the United States, the mushroom varieties that you're typically going to see in the grocery store are cremini, white button mushrooms, and portobello mushrooms. So we're much more limited in terms of varieties. But there are plenty of cultures and populations that do still appreciate mushrooms. In Poland, mushroom hunting is a national pastime. Everyone gets out in the springtime and fall to hunt and forage for bullets and chanterelles, which are prized commodity in the Mexico and Southwest. wheat lacoche is a bluish fungus that grows on corn. It's a delicious fungus that can be added to your tacos or quesadillas. The name comes from the Nuat and was a staple to the Aztecs' diet. It also held great significance for the Hopi and Zuni in both ceremonial and culinary and medicinal uses. So if you ever have the opportunity to have wheat lacoche, I definitely recommend it. So why should we pay more attention to fungi? Fungi are the perfect embodiment of a holistic system at work. They contribute to their surrounding environment through an astonishing variety of ways. All right, so they help to facilitate the end of life cycle for plants, trees, and animals by breaking down the lignin or the carbon matter in these plants, and then essentially help to return it back to the earth. As the materials, the lignin is broken down, it's returned to the soil in the form of very nutrient-dense organic matter. The mycelial structure, what we were talking about in the beginning, the underground network also serves as Earth's internet. It helps to connect plants to one another and to the mycelial body mass, biomass. So it essentially helps, as these plants tap into the mycelial network, they're able to communicate among each other. There have been studies shown with trees that were introduced to specific disease or pest. As they were tapped into a mycelial network, the one tree that first experienced the pest or disease was actually able to communicate to the remaining trees in its network. And those other trees began releasing the same antibodies that that first tree was releasing in response to the stressor. So it's really beneficial. It's beneficial. It's absolutely vital for our environment. In terms of soil restoration, the mycelium helps to circulate the newly absorbed energy sources and redistributes those nutrients to plants that may not be getting them on their own as well. And its ability to break down complex materials also serves in a healing and rehabilitating contaminated soil. So this is what that looks like. It's called microremediation. And essentially what it's doing, or the function of this process, is to use mycelium in a way to actually remediate contaminated soil. So we can actually target petrocarbons like oil spills, contaminated farmland from fertilizers and pesticides. What the mycelium from, and this picture up in the right-hand corner are specifically oyster mushrooms that are being used for remediation. But what it does is, as the mycelium moves through the substrate, it's analyzing and releasing the metabolites that break down these complex compounds into their smaller, more harmless molecular units. So we can actually use mycelium from mushrooms to remediate contaminated land, like in brown sites, oil spills, etc. So this is something that is being implemented on like smaller scales, but there's like major potential for going in mass scale to address some of the harm that's been done to the soil already. All right, so fungi do all this in their own environment, embodying a functional and intentional way of cohabitating shared space with the rest of nature. What would it look like if we as humans reformulated our own personal and collective behaviors in a way that resembles the collective action of fungi? So now I want to talk about how fungi can actually help us personally in our own health. All right, so why are fungi beneficial to our health? Many mushrooms contain compounds that act as biological response modifiers. These compounds, we're looking at, are beta-glucans and triterpenes. Beta-glucans have a visible impact on our immune system as they specifically target and communicate with our macrophages, white blood cells, and NK cells. Essentially, what this is saying is beta-glucans help to facilitate communication amongst the cells in our immune system on a cellular level, just further making our immune system more efficient to respond to outside stressors. Another word for it is called immunomodulation. It's able to upregulate or downregulate our inflammatory response. So sometimes we need anti-inflammatory response to specific stressors, and other times we need to deregulate our immune system in the terms of like autoimmune diseases. Mushrooms and beta-glucans can actually help our immune system do both. Other benefits in terms of consuming mushrooms, they contain a lot of protein. They're high in protein, up to like 25 to 30% protein by dry weight. So this is great for people that are trying to limit or kind of balance their meat intake without sacrificing their protein intake for the diet. So now we can talk about a few different mushrooms that we can functionally incorporate into our diet on a regular basis. The first one, oyster mushrooms. These are going to be probably one of the easiest to come by in terms of like a gourmet mushroom. They're extremely easy to cook with. They're really easy to grow too. You know, beginners and people just using low-tech methods can grow these on straw, you know, out in their backyard, in their garden. They're also grown really easily on sawdust and wood chips. So they are full of polysaccharides, great for immune support. They also have been shown to help to lower cholesterol by improving blood lipid levels. Again, great meaty texture. One of my favorites just because it's a staple to work with. Then we've got shiitake. Great benefit, you know, amazing benefits. You know, antiviral, great for liver function. Again, a lot of these mushrooms actually help to aid in battling cancer and our anti-tumor functions. And shiitakes are good for heart health as well. Maitake, again, anti-cancer, good for anyone with diabetes or regulating their blood sugar levels. Maitake is an amazing mushroom if you ever come across it while foraging or just hiking out in the woods. This is definitely a culinary, you know, gem, and it's, again, really good for your immune system. And we've got lion's mane. This mushroom on the left, it's really fun to work with. It's a really fascinating mushroom. You know, you can see the long kind of like icicles. It's a very unique shape to it. This mushroom is unique in many ways because it also is one of the few mushrooms that stimulates nerve growth factor. So people are using it in studies in terms of how to combat the effects of dementia and other neurodegenerative diseases, because essentially it helps to regenerate the myelin sheath between your axons and I'm forgetting my biology right now, but essentially, yeah, so it helps to regenerate the myelin sheath amongst your brain cells. Oops. It's also great for your gut biome. And again, delicious to work with in the kitchen. It fries up kind of like, it tastes like crab. So it's really easy to use in making like faux crab cakes. You can grill it, saute it. Yeah, it's great. A few other mushrooms we've got. These are more on the medicinal end, so not so much, you're not gonna find them as much in the kitchen because they're so woody. They're full of triterpenes, so they're gonna be really effective, again, in terms of anti-tumor, anti-cancer. Turkey tail has been used in many studies addressing breast cancer. It's been shown to help move and boost the immune system alongside chemotherapy. So people who have used turkey tail supplements have found great success in battling breast cancer. Reishi is kind of like the number one go-to all-around health mushroom. The Chinese called it the 10,000-year mushroom. This mushroom on the bottom, it's a beautiful mushroom. It's very, very hard and woody. You can use it in teas and tinctures, same with turkey tail. But this is also great for inhibiting histamine release. So it's good if you have allergies, especially right now. Antihypertensive, anti-inflammatory, a potential treatment for rheumatoid arthritis, antioxidant, anti-tumor, and immunomodulation. So to sum it up, all of these mushrooms, as incorporated, on a daily or weekly basis can really help to boost your immune system. Which obviously going, through these times right now is really imperative, as we want to make sure that we're prepared, in the case of COVID. There are specific studies being done right now to actually study how mushrooms and medicinal compounds from mushrooms can actually be used to combat COVID-19, because some of these mushrooms actually have antiviral effects, and have been used in studies to treat HIV as well. And so there's some, potential opportunity for mushrooms to aid in that. But overall, they really should be, looked to as a staple in our diets to improve our overall health. So that concludes my presentation. I'd like to just kind of open it up now to any questions that you guys have. For sure.
Awesome. So I have a question for you. What is the biggest challenge in just getting the education about mushrooms out there? And mushrooms have been around for thousands of years, and I see that there is like a mushroom community that know what their benefits are, but why isn't this more widespread?
That's a great question. I think that it's really just about people getting out there and enthusiastically sharing this information. Like I kind of laid out in the beginning, different cultures and populations approached mushrooms differently. Some countries like the UK approach them with like a lot of like fear. And there's a lot of, historical artwork you can kind of see in terms of how cultures and populations have looked at mushrooms in the past. And so because some of them, if you're out foraging, you should know and be able to identify or be with someone that can, mushrooms that could be hazardous. But there are so many mushrooms that are beneficial to us that it's a shame to actually write them all off. And so, going back to your question, I think it's just a matter of, some populations are a little bit, further behind in this journey with inculturating mushrooms into our culture. And I think, it's just about, getting on the ground and being enthusiastic and sharing this knowledge. So, and creating networks, creating the mycelial networks that can actually share this information and other resources effectively and efficiently.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question?
Yeah, Justin, go ahead, Adonis.
So I have a question. You talked about using mushrooms to take toxins out of the ground. What would that look like, or how does that look like on a small scale? So, like people who are running community gardens, how could that look? Instead of clean out their soil using corn and sunflower, or just sunflower really. But what else? How would that look on just a small scale?
Hey, what's up, Adonis? Good to see you, man. Okay, so I was having a little difficulty hearing your question, but was it, how can small scale cultivators get into cultivating mushrooms. Is that the gist of it? Okay, cool. So
Yes.
awesome. Yeah, really to start, you know, it's really easy to get into growing oyster mushrooms off of straw, hay, or wood chips. You know, you really just need to start with some sawdust spawn, which you can get from like a local provider. You know, we can set you up with some sawdust spawn for oyster mushrooms. And then you essentially, you know, there's a low-tech process in terms of inoculating the straw with this with the mushroom mycelium, and once that the hay or straw is fully myceliated, you're going to be, you know, harvesting, you know, oyster mushrooms in a matter of weeks. So it's just a matter of like, you need to pasteurize the substrate, so you're going to pasteurize the straw. And there are also anaerobic ways of pasteurizing without using heat, which is really pretty cool too. But yeah, so you pasteurize the straw, you inoculate it with the sawdust, you have it in your container, which can be just like, you know, 5 gallons, you know, Menards, Home Depot buckets, clothes baskets. You know, people also will do like the hang tubes, which are just kind of like long poly, you know, poly bags, and they'll hang them. And as long as it's kept within a humid environment, they're eventually going to fruit. So I'd love to connect with you more on how to do that, you know, where you're trying to grow. So.
I
Thank
had
you. Also posted another question in the chat. I'll go after that.
my question was, there's a lot of features with mushrooms to clean the soil for oil spills and things like that, like you mentioned, but can it be used to revitalize a soil, like if it's over farmed, if it was like mixed into a field, would that be able to revitalize the soil enough to let it be, you know, usable for farming again?
Yeah, so mushroom compost, which is, you know, the byproduct of the mushroom production process. You know, we have these spent blocks. They're just spent mycelial blocks, and they're heavy in organic matter, and they continue to break down the wood content, producing like highly organic material that is excellent as a soil additive. So for farms, fields that have been exhausted of their, you know, nutrient resources, it's a great additive. Adonis, going back to your question too, yeah, using those same spent blocks and look into specific mushrooms like oyster mushrooms, like King Stropharia, which is the wine cap. Those mushrooms are really beneficial in terms of remediating contaminated soil. So you can use that to essentially pull out the toxins in the soil, which we have a lot of in Chicago. You know, we're not supposed to be growing anything out of our ground. We're only supposed to be growing, or for food, you know, we're only supposed to be growing out of raised beds. And so this, you know, utilizing the mushroom compost as a way to eliminate those toxins and heal that soil is something that we need to explore more.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Justin.
Yeah.
So, what's your organization trying to do specifically? Like, what are your aims and what are the challenges you're facing currently?
Oh, excellent. Thanks for asking that one. Yeah, so our organization, you know, essentially we're looking to provide an economical way for families to access mushrooms throughout the Chicago community. You know, we're currently in the process of scaling up. So right now, you know, we're really only producing mushrooms enough for like, you know, person to person private sale, and producing mushrooms for like their medicinal components to go into tinctures. But once things are fully up and running, we want to be in a place where we can, be providing our mushrooms for mutual aid. We have partnered with organizations previously in providing mutual aid for like hot meals. But ultimately, we want to be able to connect with farmer CSAs to provide mushrooms in like their produce offerings, and then plug into communities that don't have access to these resources either, and create more of like a opportunity to plug into mutual aid there. But beyond the food aspect, what we're looking to do is connect mushroom growers, connect community gardens through like the dispersion the disbursement of mushroom compost to help heal like their soil, and their communities. So that's another big focus of ours. And going back to the educational component, Full Circle Fungi is really, we're invested in the sharing of this knowledge and how mushrooms can help us to kind of move towards coming back into balance with ourselves, with this land and one another. So those are kind of like our key targets. Challenges that we're facing, just in terms of Chicago scaling up, meeting all the specific criteria the city needs in terms of being like, a business. And, it's just like, it's time and, labor, essentially just getting everything up and rolling. But aside from that, just connecting communities, community gardens to one another and sharing this knowledge is kind of like not necessarily an obstacle, but something that we're actively working on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Is there any type of current forum or blog or anything happening here in Chicago where people are already communicating and talking to have their collaboration and these conversations taking place, or is that something that still needs to be built out?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if there is. I'm not plugged into it, and so that's definitely something that should be explored if it's not already. There are mushroom communities. The plant holds like a monthly like mushroom or fungi cultivation foraging meeting, and that's really beneficial in terms of networking with other mushroom growers. But ultimately, it would be really cool to see that kind of expanded to people that aren't able to make it, and also just for everyone that wants to plug into that knowledge base too. Yeah. Okay. So Juan, you asked, what's my opinion on Paul Stamets? That's a good question. Pretty loaded. First of all, I'd love to hear your take on Paul Stamets too. But first getting into mushrooms, I was pretty enthralled with Paul Stamets. He was a wealth of knowledge, as I first started learning about everything. And like all the studies, many studies that he's run have contributed a lot to, the field. But I feel like he takes up a lot of space in terms of what the mushroom community is, or the mycologist community, and like his products are. So yeah, he sells products as well, and those are primarily, I believe, they're mycelium grown on rice, as opposed to like the fruiting bodies. And there's a lot of debate as to where the beneficial, like how much beneficial components you're actually getting out of mycelium on rice, as opposed to consuming the actual fruiting body of like the medicinal mushrooms. So there's a lot to Paul Stamets. I think that's all that needs to be said there. But
Yeah, I think it was more like he makes a lot of claims that I feel like a lot of people in the scientific community kind of say are that go overboard. So more of just because you're talking a lot about the properties, the amazing properties, like how much of those claims do you think are actually true?
Okay. Well, you know, there are a lot of studies, but there needs to be a lot more studies. I think a lot of the studies that have been done in terms of like the medicinal impact of mushrooms is done in vitro. And so if there were more studies done in vivo with, you know, actual human participants, you know, studying the entire like holistic effects of mushrooms, I think that would be beneficial as well. But yeah, I definitely see your point there. You know, so I think at this point, you know, in terms of like, you know, what the scientific community thinks of on the topic, it's just a matter of we need more exposure. Like, you know, first and foremost, like mushrooms need more exposure. You know, and we can see anecdotally from other cultures, you know, how they've been incorporated, you know, for, you know, thousands upon thousands of years, that there is something there. So.
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
Go for it, Sunith.
Okay, hi. Actually, from that one of your slides, which you showed, like for this micro remediation, you all tried with using oyster mushroom, and you said like those mushrooms are not fit for, I mean, not edible, because since the majority of the substrate is like petroleum products. So yeah, my question is that like whatever, like what I know, like when the mushroom starts it's like when it actually when, yeah, when the mushroom fruits, I mean I mean when it grows, yeah, so like spores starts coming out from the underneath of that mushroom. So is there any danger from those spores? I mean, like since those mushroom are any not edible ones, so I guess the spores, I mean, is there any effect, is there a chance of any effect in the environment from those the spores coming out from those mushrooms?
That's a great question. So yeah, to your point, you wouldn't want to consume mushrooms that were grown on like contaminated soil. In terms of like petrocarbons, like oil contamination, and I believe even like pesticides, they're not going to bioaccumulate the the harmful chemicals, because the mycelium is essentially cutting down the hydrocarbons into their more base components. So technically, they wouldn't be harmful to consume, though if there are any heavy metals, they are bioaccumulators of heavy metals. So you just don't really want to mess with that. But in terms of the spore load and whether or not the spores are harmful, I don't believe so. I think that's something that should probably make for a really cool study. If anything, though, I believe the spores would just, you know, once those spores myceliate and create, you know, land in a new place, they would be more apt to responding in a stronger way to like petrochemical contamination, because their previous generation was able to, you know, effectively, you know, live off that contaminated substrate. And so, you know, as you kind of like go down the, you know, generational line, you might see more efficiency in addressing contamination. But I'm not sure how much they'd actually be harmful. That's a great question.
Okay, thanks.
Does anyone else have anything? Sumi, go.
Yeah, now I want to have conversation. Hi Justin, I'm from Nepal. And we grow mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, from past like 2 years from now, and we are sending now for shiitake mushrooms and other mushrooms also, which have medicinal benefits. So I'm really glad to get connected with you and discussing about the products you said what we can make to incorporate in our diet. We are in the process where we dry oyster mushrooms and we are mixing it with like wheat flour or bread flour to make the bread substitute instead of just wheat and make it gluten free. And we are also collaborating with chefs so that they can make other products from the dried mushrooms as well. Canning part in the oyster mushrooms is a little difficult, but butter mushrooms as well. And in case of shiitake mushrooms, we are also trying like veg patties in the burgers so that they can get a different substitute for that. And we are also thinking to make like extracts from them, mushroom extracts. In Impaction group also I have shared I want help with the distillation plant, and we are planning to diversify in the herbs. So we are planning to like make a mixtures of herbs and dry mushrooms so that we can make a product which can be like immune boosting, or it can be targeted to certain groups of people like diabetic peoples and so on. So yes, we are into that, and I will be very glad to share my knowledge. And as Suneet asked one question that the spores does have an effect. So we grow a lot of oyster mushrooms. It's like in one tunnel we produce like 3,000 kgs at once. So you can actually see the spore cloud going on. So the visibility is so blurred when you try to pick up the mushrooms. So yes, there's respiratory problems you can encounter with that spores. And we have also seen in our staff that they develop some eczema and the swelling of the hands when picking the mushrooms. So I'm also a sensitive person, so I have also developed that thing in my fingers. So it actually hurts. So this is the part that is unexplored, but yes, this can be in the next topic, that some of the mushroom can have toxic effects even if it is edible. So yeah,
right. Thank you for that. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I forgot about the respiratory impact. Yes, if you're harvesting mushrooms, especially in densely populated areas or densely fruiting areas, yeah, wearing like a respirator mask. Do you wear those?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that. Yeah, the mushroom farmers around here, they call it spore lung. If you inhale too many spores, you end up, I mean, it's like a cumulative effect. So you just get a cough and it doesn't really go away. So yes, thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, sure.
And that's awesome. That's great to hear that you're doing that in your community. Yeah, with the tinctures, I think there's so much to explore. And not just with mushrooms, but like you were saying, with other herbs and creating like more of like a synergistic effect. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool things to explore there.
Awesome, everyone. We have 5 more minutes left, so we have room for 2 more questions or thoughts. Jim, go for it.
Okay, thank you. Justin, I just wanted to dovetail on Juan's question. Would you say that mycelia are kind of in a space of either neutrality or acceptance in the scientific and medical community? I know that, you know, in the West, you know, there's big walls built around the medical community as it approaches preventative and treatment. And obviously, you know, pharma has a lot to do with that. But from the scientific community, is there an openness there? I know that Alt Health and that sort of thing has done a lot to create skepticism, and you know, the type of product that says, hey, you know, pay a lot for this, but no, we're not FDA approved. You're kind of rolling the dice on what, as a consumer, and you know, naturally the scientific and medical community are just going to throw up their hands and say, yeah, you know, we have no idea.
But
what these people are up to doing other than just getting their infomercials up and rolling. So, you know, you and I had spoken about a blog post that I am going to be writing about natural foods and brain boosting and that sort of a thing, and what mushrooms might be applicable to that sort of space. But you know, I guess my question is, what as I do more research and as if a person is out there just inquiring, you know, where is the level of acceptance in general? Or
yeah.
curiosity, or is there, you know, arms being folded up against that?
Well, I'm definitely not an expert in the medical field, and you know, I'm not tapped into that community either, so I'm not exactly sure where they stand. But you know, as there are more and more studies, clinical studies, you know, that are being documented, I believe that there is going to be, you know, more acceptance and a general consensus to the overall health, you know, impacts of these, you know, fungi, and also in terms of, you know, efficacy. You know, what is more effective? You know, is it the mycelium? Is the fruiting body? You know, well, how much am I supposed to be taking, you know, on a daily basis to be effective? You know, so these are all things that um, we really just need to continue, you know, moving the ball forward. And you know, there's always going to be pushback from establishment. You know, I think that's just kind of a given in general. And so, you know, I think we just kind of have to forge our way forward. But that being said, being like cautiously optimistic, you know, I don't think it's conducive for anyone, no matter how invested you are in the process, to move forward blindly, you know, without actually, you know, acknowledging that, you know, some things may not be as effective as others, or as we previously thought. So I think, you know, a healthy level of skepticism, but just paying attention to like all the studies that are coming out, and there are a lot of like, you know, cumulative studies as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome, you guys. I'm sorry to do this, but we have run out of time. I know, Suneet, you had a question, so what I'll do is circle back with everyone so you have enough each other's contact information in case you want to connect after this call. But for now, we have to wrap up. Let me just share my screen really quickly to share, you know, where this is an additional way that you guys can connect. So as you can see here on our website, www.myimpaction.com, Justin has created his social impact profile and his goals that he would like to achieve in the social impact space. And he has also posted on our idea forum with these questions that he presented to us prior to our discussion. So I really encourage everyone to, you know, reply to this comment. We'll connect you to that way as well for a more streamlined conversation. But in the meantime, you know, I'll circle back and, you know, have everyone connect via email after this call. Justin, thank you so much. It's been an incredible video session. And I guess have one more question. You know, what are your main asks of us and of people who are watching this video session? What's the revolution behind mushrooms that you would like to share with everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my main ask would be to just, you know, start, you know, find out how you can incorporate mushrooms into your diet, or like find where you can find them locally, connect with the people that are growing them, and you know, just get a taste for what they're all about. Yeah, I don't think I have any other asks beyond that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, and thank you to all of our viewers who are watching this session. We'll send over some follow-up material as well, but thank you guys again. Hold on for 1 or 2 more minutes so we can hear feedback from all the people who are on this call. But for those of us joining on our YouTube, thanks for watching.